Man who's accused of dousing his girlfriend with petrol and setting a light will be back in the Johannesburg Magistrate's Court today.
Mpho Thobane is accused of attacking Viwe Dalingozi after discovering she spoke to her ex-boyfriend. The
incident happened at the couple's flat in the Johannesburg CBD. Our colleague Silindelo Masikane is following that case for us. Silindelo, good morning. Thank you very much for coming in. Very tragic incident indeed. And just coming around the time when there's been a lot of focus and summits held about gender-based violence and femicide. I guess this case couldn't have come at a time when that is top of mind.
Yeah, and we're just weeks before we start the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So, I mean, Viwe Dalingozi, a case like this is one that South Africans are quite familiar with. She is one of many women in this country. Karabo Mokoena is just another example that we can speak about of intimate violence between partners that is quite on the rise in South Africa. Now, what we know about this case is that about 2 weeks ago on a Friday night, they were hanging out with friends, Viwe Dalingozi and her boyfriend Mpho Thobane, and it seems there was a spat around her, maybe speaking to her ex-boyfriend, and him wanting to leave this gathering and going back to her flat. Now, what we know is that he went and bought petrol, doused her with that petrol, and set her alight while she was asleep. Now, what we know from speaking to neighbors is that they heard footsteps like running. Right after that, started smelling smoke and ran down. Now, what we also know is that Viwe Dalingozi managed to actually leave her flat, still in flames, to get help. And she managed to call her family using one of the phones of her neighbors just to alert them that, listen, I've been hurt and I could possibly die. She was admitted at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital and unfortunately succumbed to her extensive burn injuries about 2 weeks ago on Sunday. And an extensive manhunt was then ensued by the police, and they found him, Mpho Thobane, in his hometown of Limpopo in Mokopane, and that was also due to the help of the community that was alerted around this issue. And he was arrested on Tuesday. He made his first court appearance last week. It was postponed because he did not have any legal representation. And so the magistrate then postponed the matter to today, and that is where we expect him to once again appear.
And we also understand that he does have a history of violent behaviour.
It does seem
playing with fire, if I had to put it that way, in the past as well.
It does seem so. There is an arrest in 2012, in fact, where there was another incident with his former lover, where he allegedly maliciously damaged her property, her car, and that case was subsequently withdrawn. But it seems there is some kind of history with Mpho Thobane and issues around domestic violence. Now, he has been charged with premeditated murder as well as arson, and the magistrate did make it clear to him that it's a Schedule 6 offence and carries a minimum of life, basically.
Yeah, now, being the second appearance, it will be like the first one because he didn't have legal representation last week.
Exactly.
What should we expect normally when these cases begin? Is it a pleading still yet or not?
Yes, so we are expecting him to either have that legal representation today and would have explained the charges that he's facing. We've, of course, applied for media access, and that is what we expect the magistrate to rule on as well today. But we have heard from the police that during his arrest, they actually noticed that he had minor burn wounds on his hands, on his legs, and it seems they may have actually been a confession on his part. So that is all still going to come out in court to see whether he will actually admit to what happened or whether he will be bringing a defense.
Okay.
And has there been sort of much interest when it comes to civil society? With Karabo Mokoena, we saw so much happening outside court, so much happening in support of her and the family. Are we seeing the same interest here from various groups?
I have not seen much presence in court. The deceased families resides in the Eastern Cape. We have spoken to them, but they really cannot make it to the case. They're busy preparing funeral arrangements. And on the side of the accused, I also haven't seen much family from inside or any kind of presence, but we may possibly see something today. We know that gender-based violence is now on the top of our agenda. We had that summit concluding last week, and we just heard those harrowing stories around how unsafe women are feeling in this country, how women are basically walking targets in this country. And so it's an issue that lies close to many South Africans, and I think we will, as the case progresses, see a lot of support for Viwe Dalingozi.
Silindelo Masikane, we'll have to let you go now to get ready to go to court to follow that story. Silindelo Masikane is following that case for us. This is the case of Mpho Thobane, who is accused of attacking Viwe Dalingozi in Johannesburg.